This is Talking to the Dead with Janet Kubik. I'm your host, Joe Oliva. Let me introduce you to the star of the show, who never stays on topic, Janet Kubik.
Hello.
It's not your fault, but you never stay on topic.
Yeah, kind of true, right? I guess talking to spirit has given me a bit of a weakness there. I don't know if I ever stayed on topic, but certainly since they've been interjecting, it's a very hard thing to do.
Yeah. So just so people know, we're recording on the same day, but in last week's episode, because we release them every Wednesday, Robin Williams popped by unexpected. And so I didn't really have a chance to prepare any questions for him. But I don't think I needed to. I don't think I really need to do a lot of prep for this show.
No, lucky you.
Yeah.
Me either. And that's the crazy thing is going into it, just really like having no idea. But I find that's what it is being a medium. There isn't anything I can plan ahead for. I just have to kind of take it as it comes.
Yeah, just so people know, I usually say this at the end, but I'm going to say this now. If you are enjoying this YouTube show, it's also on Instagram TV, it's on Facebook video, and it's on every major podcasting platform. Help the show out by sharing. It helps a lot. If you just know a friend that you think might be interested in it, just send it to them and say, I found this particular episode interesting, whatever, and then we'll do the rest. Once they see it, hopefully they will like the show. But it really helps us out to grow the fan base, as we can call it.
Yeah, and to get the messages out there. I mean, that's one of the things I think we're finding with doing this series is that the messages that are coming forward are just so profound and real and
Right.
needed. And so it's actually funny that, again, that you chose to intro that way, or sort of take that from the ending and put it here, because to be honest, as we were on the little bit of a break that we took, the mood started to shift a little bit for me from the last episode. And what I was starting to sort of get the sense of was spirit wanting to come forward to sort of address that idea of us needing to hear these messages at this time. And actually, as I say that, we are shifting into channeling mode. So give me one moment.
Yeah, so just so people know, we did actually prepare an episode today, but Robin Williams interjected, as he often used to on Earth, and just sort of took over the episode 10. Now, episode 11, I said to Janet off camera, I said, are you ready for this topic we prepared? And she said, I have a feeling it's not going to go that way. So I don't know any more than they do about who's going to pop in.
Right. Well, at this point, I'm feeling my own guide, whose name is Myrtle, and we've introduced her earlier on in the series.
Yes.
She says that they are stepping forward at this time. The feeling, I'm just sort of wanting to describe the feeling. It's a very sort of, I get the word sobering feeling. I'm not even entirely sure I understand what that means, but I get this sense of it's a very sobering sort of moment for them. She says, we know the toll that is being taken at this time in the evolution of humanity. She says, we see and we feel what you are enduring or experiencing at this time. And she says, as much as there is an underlying current of hope and peace as we move forward through the evolution of the human race, this time, this particular time in humanity, indeed is a challenging one. Know, my friends, that we are with you. We are with you in spades. We are with you en masse. You are not being left in the lurch, so to speak. So even as the walls begin to crumble, as the towers begin to collapse, know that we are supporting you, and that indeed, my friends, they will be rebuilt. Better, stronger, more lasting, and with greater peace. In love and light, my friends. Amen. So there we go.
Okay.
All right.
Myrtle the Greek made an appearance. I love it.
Yeah, we've talked about, possible other topics for episodes too. And one of the big things, of course, going on in the world right now is the coronavirus. There is a lot going on politically. There's a lot going on in terms of, civil unrest and discrimination, and just all sorts of different issues are just really being highlighted and being kind of ripped apart at the seams right now. And that's hard. That's hard. And again, as Myrtle says, or said, that underlying current, for me at least, that I'm able to hold on to and to stay connected with for the most part, is one of positivity. It's one of new growth and rebuilding and things that she sort of referenced. But some days it gets hard to hold on, when you see what's going on around you, and you see, for me personally, and I'm not a politician, or I don't speak to politics typically, but seeing some of the leaders that we have at this time, it's disheartening. And honestly, it's scary. I personally find it scary.
Yeah.
But underneath that fear is that current of energy, of positivity, of regrowth, of all of those good things. So hopefully we can all just kind of hang on to that and trust and know that spirit are surrounding and supporting us at this time, even though things sometimes look bleak. I just get sort of the idea of like the dark before the light, or it's darkest before the sun rises, is how they're sort of saying it to me right now.
Right.
The dark before the dawn is kind of an idea I'm getting right now, or the storm, how there's always a rainbow after a storm. These are just some sort of messages or analogies, I guess, that are kind of popping forward right now. So yeah, I think we just need to hold on for now. Keep holding on. So that was a very sort of somber and intense message. Totally not at all what we were going to talk about today.
No, but I think we should continue with it.
Okay. Yeah. If you're game.
So I know that you can call Myrtle back at any time. So maybe she'll just pop back in. So I wrote some notes down while you were speaking. You said it's a sobering moment. And then she said, we see and we feel what's happening. This time is a particularly challenging one. Walls crumbling, towers collapsing. I think sometimes people shouldn't panic. I think sometimes she talks metaphorically, right?
Yes.
The walls could be the walls that are dividing us as humans.
Yeah.
The towers could be people's egos. And then you talked about, I think that's sort of where she left off. And then you talked about coronavirus, politics. How did Rob Molina say it?
That's right.
Politics.
That was brilliant. Politics. That's brilliant. I like that.
It is, and he was brilliant. And you talked about civil unrest. So maybe I don't even know if the question is for Janet or for Myrtle or anyone else that wants to jump in. What's the problem?
She starts.
Why are we here? Why are we in this place? I mean, everyone thinks that they live in a unique time in history, but I really think that we live in a unique time in history. I know that people in 1705 thought that they were living in a unique time in history, and I guess maybe everyone is.
Well, as you sort of started first talking about it and asking, why are we here? Myrtle did sort of chuckle a little bit, and not in any kind of offending way, but just that the statement was, now that's opening quite the can of worms. Um, so one of the things that I have discovered through this whole process of discovering I can communicate with spirit and that spirit exists, and what would be potentially referred to as a soul awakening, which is a whole nother topic and a whole nother experience to share about and get into.
Right.
It has challenged me in many ways to really, well, Spirit's way of putting it was rewrite your way of being.
Right.
And it is a necessity, I think, in moving forward for all of us to really pull apart and re-examine how it is we exist. In all ways, physically, mentally, emotionally, societally, is that a word?
Yep, it is.
Structurally, um, everything needs to be pulled apart and put back together. She also was intimating that, yes, we do live at a unique time, or we are living in a unique time in humanity. She says, however, all times in humanity, each are unique in their own way and are all of equal importance and value. She says, however, you are existing at a time of significant shift. So she talks about how, or spirit often talks about the idea of humanity or the human existence from an energetic perspective, as the fact that we exist as energy. Everything that exists is energy. That's a scientific piece of knowledge, right? We all exist. Everything exists as a form of energy. And one of the ways that it has been explained to me multiple times by spirit is that the balance in the energy is off. Okay. So, sorry, I'm hearing her at the same time, and she's saying, yes, this is the explanation to offer at this time. So she's kind of giving me the floor, but she's just saying that, yes, this is the way to approach this, because it is a huge can of worms, right? That you open when you ask that question. So the balance in the energy of this existence is off. There's too much dark and not enough light. Or we could say too much negative and not enough positive would be maybe another way to refer to it. So what is needing to happen is that the world is needing to shift its existence to come into a greater, more peaceful, easeful balance between the dark and the light. So when you, Joe, refer to ego, for me, my understanding, ego is a byproduct or it exists as a lower or darker energy.
Right.
So when we're seeing the presence of all of these egos, I mean, a prime example is in politics, and not in every case in politics, but right now it feels especially highlighted in politics, is that sort of negative energy or egoic energy. That is something that is needing to come back into balance. When the lower vibration energy or vibration, sorry, the vibrational energies are dominating, it's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. And I think that that's what we are experiencing right now, is that there's so much egoic energy, there's so much negative energy, we're all really uncomfortable. And so because we're uncomfortable, it is the catalyst for change. Because if we're comfortable, we don't change things. We need to be right. We need to be uncomfortable in order to affect change, to be inspired, to be motivated to affect change.
Discomfort is the catalyst for change. Was that Janet or Myrtle that said that?
That came from me. Wow, I said something sort of profound.
Yeah, like I'm writing it down. I'm writing it down. That's like,
right?
You know, when they say like, oh, here are the, quotes from Oscar Wilde or whatever. That's like, to me, that was one of your best quotes anyway.
Oh, thanks. Well, the thing is, and this is another thing Spirit says to me too, is that, having that relationship with Spirit is not about becoming dependent on them. It's about them supporting you in your own personal growth so that you can grow and develop as your own spirit, as your own soul. And that to me is what my soul awakening, just sort of in a brief nutshell, has been about. There were periods of time where I relied on them, what felt like 24 hours a day. But I'm getting to a place now where I feel like that relationship educated me, it informed me, it changed my physiology. Again, another whole topic. It changed me emotionally. It changed my entire well-being. It changed my perspective, my interpretation, my understanding.
Yeah.
And because of all of that, now I feel like I can more confidently, as Janet, speak to what I have come to believe to be true. To speak from a place of my own intuition and from a place of feeling and what are my thoughts and ownership and authenticity for myself as Janet.
So we did have some questions that people have asked or submitted over time, but maybe we'll just sort of jump on them and see what happens and where it goes, okay?
Okay.
So the first one is, do you talk to spirit out loud or in your mind?
Hmm. Good question. Yeah, and I know who asked that one. My beautiful cousin asked that question of me at one point. So for me, I do both. Um, I do speak aloud sometimes to spirit, especially I feel like if I really am feeling like I want to emphasize my point um, in the conversation, I will speak it out loud. But generally, my conversations or communication with spirit happens internally. So I'm going to sort of say within my being. And the reason I'm saying that is because, like we've talked about in previous episodes, sometimes I feel I'm hearing the information. Sometimes I feel like I know the information. So I'm sort of getting it through my mind or through my thoughts. But also a lot of the time, I'm feeling the information. So I'm feeling it in my body, literally sometimes. And then also just sort of those senses or those sensations that I don't know if they actually exist in our physical body or if it's in a subtle body or how that technically works, but just those feelings or sensations. So when I am writing, for example, that is all happening internally. I'm not having an allowed conversation. It's all happening internally. And then again, sometimes when I'm channeling spirit, I do channel them audibly. So like we've done in some of the previous episodes too, when we've had spirit come forward, then I actually will talk to them aloud. Um, yeah, so it's kind of, I think, a little bit of a mix of everything. But the one thing that I do say to people all the time is that sometimes spirit needs me in order to be heard, but they don't need me in order to hear you or
Right.
to hear anybody else. And oftentimes one of the messages I do get from spirit is them coming forward and saying to, their loved ones, for example, I hear you when you're talking to me and you're, thinking about me in your mind and you're having those conversations, at night before you go to bed, or those times where you're talking to me out loud. I hear you. I hear you. And they don't need me in order to hear you. But at this point, sometimes they need me or mediums or people who have developed their intuitive skills to be able to be heard or sort of more literally heard. Yeah.
I would add to that, because I've worked with you for a while on this now. Um, the mind is more cluttered. Like when you actually say something, you've sort of, I mean, I don't know how your mind operates, but mine, like I have different things I can say, but what I actually say has been chosen carefully, right?
Yeah.
From among different thoughts, and I'm sort of editing as I go. I'm editing inside my brain as opposed to outside my brain.
Yes.
And so when you say it out loud, it has a little more emphasis, I think. Like if I tell you something, I've thought about what I'm going to say. So in terms of making it clear, maybe to spirit, out loud, I think can work for that situation, for a different situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And something else that's coming forward is I do remember a time where someone that I was working with, who I might consider a mentor, talked to me about the idea of being extremely specific with spirit,
Right.
and needing to, not talk about the negatives with spirit, but only talk about the positives. And, it's funny because another thing that I've learned through this process is that everything grows, everything changes, everything develops. And what I would sort of say on that topic at this point is that there needs to be no fear in terms of how you connect with spirit. Spirit is connected to you internally. They know your negative thoughts. They know your positive thoughts. They know pretty much everything that's going on. So for me, unfortunately, when I look back on that, it's almost as if it instills another layer of fear.
So you lost me there. Can you say that again?
Like, I feel like it instills almost another level of fear, maybe more specifically in terms of developing a relationship with spirit. For example, if you think that in order to connect with spirit, you have to learn a certain language, you have to have a certain verbiage, you can only talk to them this way, or you can only talk to them that way, that's restrictive.
Right.
And I feel like spirit is all knowing enough and wise enough and connected enough to our whole being that we can just be authentically ourselves. And so if we need a moment to rant to spirit and be angry with them, or be angry about life, or to feel defeated, or any of those things that we feel, my feeling on this situation is that that's okay. And that spirit aren't going to penalize us for it, or they're not going to not answer our prayers because we didn't ask for them the right way. So the more I think on that, I feel Janet, from my experience, just based on my experience, feel like that may be a bit of an outdated belief, or a protocol, or way of doing things, or
Right.
idea. Now, I would be fascinated to hear what other intuitives or mediums feel on that topic. But I just think one of the things we need to do at this time in our evolution is start removing that fear, start removing the fear of spirit and from connecting with spirit. We just get to be who we are. Connecting with spirit doesn't need you to be anything other than who you are. So again, I think I'm sort of heading into other territory, or going off on a different tangent.
Different episodes.
Different episodes, all kind of transpiring at once. But to tie it back a little bit, my connection with spirit is internal. I believe all of our connections with spirit are internal, and therefore you don't have to do things a certain way. You don't have to say it out loud to be heard. They're connected. They can hear us.
Okay, next question.
Okay.
And I know the answer to this because we've talked about it before, and it's actually a pretty funny answer, I think.
Oh, okay.
But do you need to meditate in order to connect? Tell them the truth.
You do have the answer to this one.
Be your authentic self. Tell them the truth. What happens to you when you meditate?
Right. I fall asleep. Yeah, pretty much
every time. You are not rested enough then.
I guess so. Well, I am a mother, and I have 2 dogs, and so well rested is something I haven't been for a very long time.
Yeah.
But again, it's funny because this is another question that I think really ties into what I was just sort of going off on a tangent about. And it's the idea that our spirituality is unique to each of us. Our relationship with spirit is unique to each of us. There are a lot of people who would say that the only way to communicate with spirit is through a state of meditation. And meditation works for many, 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 many people. And that's amazing. And that's wonderful. But I have come to believe that determining that relationship and how that relationship works even is very, very personal. Like, for example, I can't meditate without falling asleep. So, if somebody said to me, well, the only way you're going to ever communicate with spirit is to meditate, then I would have shut the door. I would have said, okay, sorry, can't do it, going to shut her down. But instead, what happened to me is I created my own unique relationship. Spirit facilitated my own or our own unique relationship. So I didn't have to meditate in order to have that connection or communication with them.
So going back to what we said about do you talk to spirit out loud or in your mind? I think meditation, I mean, I'm not an expert at it by any stretch of the imagination, but I know it's about clearing your mind, right? So it's like how I
Yeah.
was saying about if you speak out loud, you put a little more thought and editing into thought itself. And I think
Yeah.
that's just a way of sort of clearing your mind so that you
Yes.
can think clearly, right?
Absolutely agreed. And I do remember some of my mentorship where it was referred to as the beta busy mind, and how to kind of quiet that mind and hone
You're
into, I
saying
believe,
beta,
I
BETA?
think it was beta. You're going to have to fact check this because I think it was beta busy mind was the reference. And then as opposed to going into, I believe it was an alpha state. I'm obviously not a very good student because I don't remember all this, but there was the reference, I believe, to the alpha state, which is the more focused, I think, more relaxed, where you're able to quiet and calm that very busy mind where we've got all those thoughts going on. And it is interesting because I do recall seeing other mediums and watching how they work. And sometimes they do use tools to get them into that sort of state where they can connect more freely. Like, for example, I don't know if anyone's ever seen Tyler Henry. He's the
Hollywood
Hollywood
media.
medium. So
Yeah,
he's someone that people could reference because he's actually on television and he always draws.
right.
So he always has a pad of paper and a pen and he scribbles. And I guess as he's doing that, that allows him to focus and concentrate and sort of quiet that, that monkey mind or that busy mind.
You used to write more. I don't notice you don't write as much anymore.
Yeah, that was just a tool for me to sort of help organize my thoughts because, as much as, for example, you and I, when we're doing these shows, you and I are having a conversation. There's also other conversation happening for me.
Right.
So I'm hearing other voices. There's other things going on for me at the same time. So typically, what I would do in a one-on-one, for example, is I would just have a notepad and pen, and sometimes I would sort of write down what I was hearing kind of in the back of my mind or that other piece of the conversation, just to kind of get it out of my head so that number one, I could focus more on our conversation or my conversation with the person I'm receiving for, but also because they're giving me valuable information. And so then I can kind of go back to it and say, hey, this was also coming forward, even though it maybe wasn't what we were talking about in that exact moment. This is more information that is coming forward. So typically I would do that more so probably when I was doing mediumship than
Right.
when I'm actually channeling.
Right. Okay, next question. Can you talk to spirit anytime, anywhere?
Again, I'm going to answer yes, um, because there is that connection with them that exists all the time. I used to say in one-on-ones when I was first, learning and going through this is that I would say, "Oh, spirit are now present," and they would always correct me and say, "No, no, no, we're always
Right.
present." It's just in this moment we are stepping forward, or we are making our presence known, or making you consciously aware of our presence in order to deliver information or messages, or to support or guide you in some way. So my understanding, again, from my experience, is that yes, spirit are there, they are present, and if you call on them, you can communicate with them. Um, yeah, for me, it varies. I mean, they'll pop in and out all the time throughout the day if I'm open to that. I have learned that if I would prefer to not have spirit interject, I have the option of saying that and the right to say that, and then they will sort of step out.
Right.
Yeah, like sometimes I just ask a question and I'll get an answer. Or sometimes I'll be meeting with someone or talking with someone on the phone and they want to deliver something. So they'll just kind of show up and I'll get my little tells that they're there and they want to deliver something. There are other times where I very purposefully sit down with spirit. And I'm like, okay, I need some information on something. I'm grappling with this in my mind, or I'm trying to understand this better. and I will literally sit down and say, okay, let's have a conversation.
Wait, are you talking about big emotional issues, let's say, or are you talking about like what should I have for dinner? Like, like that's
Both. So no joke. Like there are times where I'll be like in the grocery store and I'm horrible for making decisions, and I'll just kind of pause and I'll be like, I don't know which shampoo to buy today.
Are you
So
kidding me?
can you just give me a little nod or nudge either way? Literally things like that, all the
But
way
do they
to,
do it? Do they answer every time? Like they'll say "pert" or what a pearl or whatever the shampoo is.
well, yeah, sometimes they'll just sort of give me like, or I'll get a sense, or I'll sort of feel kind of drawn to something. Sometimes it'll be very, very clear, like, yeah, pick up that one. Um, but yeah, it kind of
It's like
varies. Like,
such a trivial thing, though. Seriously, like it seems like does it really matter? How does it impact your life? Which shampoo you choose?
well, again, I think it's the whole idea of perception as to why spirit exists and what they're here for. Like, are they supposed to be this big entity that only speaks to us when we're in trouble or when we need life lessons, or when they have to be profound and teach us and guide us, and some people even think to control us, or are they just there to support us? Like maybe that one shampoo is going to give you dandruff.
Come on.
Right, and maybe this one is going to be better for your hair. Like, I think, again, that's another sort of traditional or old school way of thinking of spirit, another piece or part of their reputation that really needs updating. They're there to support and guide us. So why can't it be in small ways?
Right.
Why can't it just, why does it have to be just in these big ominous ways? It can be all the time. you know Another thing for me, like if I find, for example, if I'm feeling unwell or if I'm uncomfortable, or something is sort of off in my body, I will ask them to help. Like,
Right.
if I've got a cough, I can ask them to help. Or if I've got a headache, this happens to me and I have a headache, and I'll say, I really pray for the spirit to step in right now to help to alleviate or diminish the pain and discomfort that I'm experiencing at this time. And it works. I mean, again, that's another whole tangent we could go off on. But my point being is that they're not just there to dictate rules on how we should live. Um, they're there to support and guide us I believe, and from my experience, in every facet of our being.
Right. So something that I've sort of done recently, well, I would say the last year working with you is because I used to say to you all the time, like, do you think Myrtle might want to give some input on this or whatever? Now I don't care anymore because I know that like time means nothing to her, or it's not like time for her isn't like what it is here. I know she's always available. So now
Yeah.
I abuse her time. I'm just like, what does Myrtle have to say? Get her in here, right? About
Yeah.
this topic we're
Well, it's funny
discussing
that
or
you say
whatever.
that, because she, of course, is stepping in and she says, you cannot call upon us too much or too little.
Right.
Simply follow your own instinct, your own intuition. If you feel the need in the moment to reach out for support, then do so. Um, she's also sort of saying, like, there's no penalty. Like, you can't call on them too much. It's not like a relationship that you can like overextend or call on too much. And I know too that one of the things for me is that varying times in my life, I will call upon them more than others. So sometimes now there are days where I really don't spend much time at all connecting, or maybe no, I think there's some form of connection probably every day in some way, shape, or form. But there were times, and I think I had said this previously, where it felt like 24 hours a day I was just reaching out and asking for guidance and support and information, and
Right.
and learning and all of these things. So there's no rules. It's just an innate knowingness. Just go with your gut, go with what you feel you need, create the relationship. So this is Myrtle stepping in. Create the relationship based on you and what you need, not what is dictated to you. Thanks, Myrtle.
Cool. Another interesting episode of Talking to the Dead with Janet Kubik. We heard from Myrtle and we answered some of the questions that people have asked. We do have some left, so we'll probably do another part 2 or something like that to this episode. Cool?
Awesome.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to subscribe on whichever platform you're joining us on. Help spread the word by sharing, and be sure to visit janetkubik.com and sign up for her email list. Bye, Myrtle.
Bye. Thanks for checking in.
Bum bum ba da ba bum ba da ba bum ba da ba 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 bum ba da ba.
I dare you to leave that in.